So you are trying to do the Fire Knight, but you have a big problem, and that is that you cannot get through the shield, right? It has a lot of stacks, every hit takes away one of the stacks, but your characters are really just not able to chew through all of that. You have some triple hitters in your team, but it just never seems to line up and be enough to go through that. Today we're going to be checking out a way of actually getting this fixed up. If you might not know before, well, we'll check out what the AI allows you to do in Raid Shadow Legends to properly set up your champions to get the most benefit out of their kit in very particular scenarios by taking an example like it's going to be the Fire Knight, right? So let's get into it as we are finishing up this fight. So let's just say you are going into a Fire Knight level which already has the 10 stacks on the shield. I think it's about level 9 when that starts happening, right? So if you just go in raw and never set up anything, what's going to happen is your champions are going to be using their abilities as random as the AI so determines, right? That can mean that they never really do what you really want to have them doing, right? What if they actually use their triple hit every time in the boss phase, for example, where you are always going to be focusing on really getting that shield down? So what you can do is to go ahead into team setups, right? And that's how we're going to be setting up our AI for our team, right? So you're going to first of all need to select a few champions, right? You're going to have to assemble a team. So in this case, I've set up here the guys that I'm going to be using. So what do we have here? We have a decent set of triple hitters. As you can see over here, we're going to have our Akemtum, who has a triple hit, which is going to be applying some poisons. We have Alice, which also has a triple hit on her A1. Then we have Vogoth, who also has a triple hit and is going to be increasing the duration of debuffs. And then we're going to be having our Oella just applying some buffs, healing up, and also doing some damage. And finally, we're going to be having our Armiger doing the turn meter decrease, right? So altogether, this team sounds absolutely awesome for the job of what is going to be killing the Fire Knight. But before we just go into the battle, because if we just leave it like this and keep on playing, nothing's really going to be changing from just like selecting your entire team from here and clicking on start. So what we're going to be doing ahead is on clicking on this little button right here, which is going to be opening up the team setup for us to go ahead and set up the AI instructions for how do we want to have the game play, right? You can of course play manually, and that would also work, but that would take ages, right? You don't really want to be manually controlling your characters in this game when you can have the AI do that for you. So what happens over here is you can select every single champion, and then you're going to be able to see what their skills are, and you're going to see some instructions, right? Some things you are going to be allowing to, you're going to be telling the game what to do in those specific scenarios for every single specific skill, right? So what we can do is for every single round of the battle, right? We have 3 rounds. We have the 2 trash rounds, right? The 2 minions rounds, and then we're going to be having the last round, which is going to be the one where we actually fight the boss, right? So what do we do here is we are going to be going one by one on every single one of these characters, and we are going to be changing the way the AI works, right? So what do we want is, for example, on stage 1 and 2, right, it's minions, we just want to be letting the AI run on its own, do whatever it thinks is best, because we don't really care too much about those levels. They're probably going to be just fine, but with all the characters doing what they naturally do. But what, for example, in this case, we really need the AI to use the triple hit every single time, right? Because what if we use a single hit sometimes, like for example for Alice, what if she goes ahead and uses the Queenslayer, right? It's a very, very important attack. It's a very, very impactful one, but it's gonna be a single attack, so we're never really gonna be able to go through the shield stacks, right? So instead what we do is we actually cancel those 2 abilities, right? We have the AoE, the Clockwork Cyclone, and the Queenslayer. We just tell the AI to never use it. Don't use that skill on the 3rd phase, which is the phase for the Fire Knight. So straight up, you just say don't use it, and what's going to happen is that the only attack that the AI is able to use after all the other ones have been cancelled is the A1, which is going to be running by default, and since that's pretty much the only one that it can use, it's going to be the one that it always uses, right? The A1 doesn't do the most damage, but it's able to at least get the triple hit in, so we can reduce the shield as often as possible. Now, we could go ahead and try to play it a little bit smarter here and try to see, okay, based off of the speed of my champions, when is Alice gonna be hitting in most scenarios? Is she gonna actually be able to land a Queenslayer when the shield is down, or is it gonna be 100% required that she always uses her A1 for triple hit? Now that's a little bit more advanced, and it might need some tuning and some tweaking depending on your speed, the champion setup, the level you're doing on the Fire Knight or any other boss in particular. So for the sake of just a random general use, we're going to be saying that she's always going to be using her A1. So she's never going to be using the Queenslayer or the Clockwork Cyclone. We're going to be doing the same for Vogoth. He's never going to be using his AoE attack, which is the taunt, because he's never really going to be taunting the boss. Anyways, we don't really care too much about that. The boss doesn't do any single target attacks. He always does AoE, right? So we always want him to be doing the triple hit, right? Now, Vogoth might not be the best pick for this boss in particular. He's going to be alright because of the triple hit. We could rather instead get somebody else who's going to be doing some more damage when that is open, like a Oella. When the shield is down, you want to have some triple hits land in there for the shield and then do some big damage to the boss. But Vogoth does the work for me, and he's one of the only champions that I have available, so this setup is going to be working just fine on him. I could do the same for my Akemtum. I could go on him and only tell him to apply, or rather use the Noxious Claws, which is basically what he's always doing. He's never really using the Hex attack here, so we can also go ahead and say that he never uses this one, because, well, we're not going to be actually applying any AoE debuffs here. We don't really want to spread out our poisons. It's only one target, and he's kind of like default going to only be using Noxious Claws if there's only one target anyways. But in the case that the AI didn't work like that, this is something else we could do in particular. For the case of Oella here, I don't really care too much about what she's going to be doing. She's going to be basically just using the A1 by default, and whenever she has the cooldown ready, she's going to be using the buff that she's going to be applying to everybody, and she's only going to be using Hand of Spring when people are low enough. That's how the AI is programmed by nature, so we don't really need to tell her to not use it. All in all, we could also do something like say that, oh, we want to be using this as the opener because we want her to, I don't know, apply this turn meter increase like earlier. So as soon as you get into the battle, just do this and fill up everybody's turn meter. But we can also just leave that up to the AI to decide. We could also say like, we want this one to go first, this second, this third. In this case, we don't really need to go that far and that deep into things, at least for this case. But that is also things that you can do there. You can play with this sort of AI in different other kinds of bosses, like for example the clan boss, if we want to be setting up like an unkillable sort of team where you can combine all the different skills, timings and speed tuning to get some things to always happen at very deterministic times. So you have a spell sequence that's always going to be happening like you want it to, and then you actually can like guarantee yourself an outcome. Very similar thing happens with Armiger. If you just really want to be getting the value out of Armiger in the form of the turn meter reduction, you can just go ahead and say that you don't want to have the Armiger use his second attack, which is the Lay to Rest. He's not going to be doing anything for the case of the Fire Knight, for example, because we don't really need any enemies to not be revived. So we always want him to be using his A1, so the turn meter decrease applies. In this case, we do the same. Never use the second attack, so he's always going to be using the turn meter decrease basically every single time he's going to be attacking. So with this whole setup, we're pretty much ready to go. We're going to be going ahead and click on save, and that's it. We just click outside, and that is the team already assembled. You're going to be able to see that the team setup is activated because it's going to be turning from yellowish to blue, and now we are fighting with the AI we set up. So we can go into the game and see how that looks. So for the first 2 rounds, nothing is going to be different from the default. We never set up anything for the 2 first rounds in particular, so the AI is going to be doing what it would normally do. It's going to be using the AoE skills with a priority. If there's many enemies, it's going to be using certain skills in certain situations. We did not tweak any of those things, so we're just going to be running as per regular. Whatever it was good before, it's going to still be applying now, right? Now we're doing also this level, I think it's like level 15 right now. We never did this level, so I don't really know if we're going to be actually winning or not. Very important to also take into account the affinity of things. If you're fighting a boss where you don't have the right affinities, you might have characters that don't actually land some of the hits. You might have some conditions where you need things to critical strike, for example, for some other effects to apply, like for example the Armiger. So you also need to be taking those things into account. But now that we get to the actual boss, what's going to happen is my Akemtum is always going to be using his A1, so there we go, he triple hits. Now, same thing is going to be happening to the Alice, she triple hit. And then the Vogoth is also going to be doing that. I do believe the Alice didn't actually triple hit there because one of the things we talked about, she didn't actually get the proc on the 3rd hit. So that's going to be something to take into account because maybe accuracy is a little bit too low for this level. Maybe she is not in the right affinity to be fighting against this guy. I think that's actually the case. All in all, there we go. The Armiger is always using his A1. The Oella is always going to be using her A1 unless the buff is up. And the Alice is always going to be using her triple hit as well as the Vogoth whenever that is available. So, yes, my team might not be the strongest for this setup, but all in all, since we are able to chew through the shield simply based off of the amount of hits we're getting in there, eventually we're going to be able to find enough spots between the shield applications, right? The shield is now down, so every single hit we do is going to be actually going through. The Vogoth is going to be doing the triple hit, although it's not going to be doing too much damage, and it's really all going to be down to the allies to actually do enough damage, and also the Vogoth to apply those poisons, so that we actually can get a kill on this guy, right? So now, eventually, the Armiger is also going to be able to land one of his hits in there, where he's going to be reducing the turn meter onto the Fire Knight, and that is really what we're looking for, some lining up over there, where the actual hit of the Armiger, which is going to be happening now, is going to be reducing the turn meter. There we go, and now the shield is down, so we got a field day here with our Metamorphosis going up, and then everybody basically gets their turn meter filled up. This is the perfect setup here. We're guaranteed to take the shield down, and then we are also guaranteed to get the Armiger to use his A1. There we go, another turn meter decrease. So we are able to, first of all, take the shield down, and secondly, extend the amount of time that the shield is going to be down, so that we are able to get more hits into the boss before he does anything. And then it's just up to your team composition and the strength overall of your team if you are able to kill him before he actually kills you, right? This works for basically everything, and you're going to be needing to actually start using this as soon as possible. I, as a new player, didn't actually know it worked like this until not that long ago, and I was just going in blind and thinking, well, I need everything to line up perfectly for the triple hit to actually be landing from all these guys, and then for the Armiger to actually be landing his A1 instead of his A2. That is actually totally wrong. The real way and the right way to be playing this game, and the way to be playing these bosses in particular, really, is to actually do so and do the proper setup through the AI, right? So after a little while over here, if my Armiger doesn't actually go down, and if he does go down, things are going to get a little bit more complicated, but it should still be fine with that turn meter decrease going in there. So eventually we will actually kill this boss, and it's just going to be, again, up to my team's power and the amount of damage that I'm able to do in between shield applications that we can actually succeed and get a kill on this guy, right? So that's pretty much all there is to it. Now let's see the end of the fight. And there we go. This is pretty much the kill. Things ended up lining up. The Armiger didn't quite just die, and that is going to perfectly allow us to clear. This was actually stage 14, but we actually cleared it pretty easily. We could probably go to stage 15, but then the Armiger probably needs to be a little bit more sturdy. But that's all thanks to the fact that we set up our AI to actually be able to fight for us as we wanted to, right? So hopefully you learned something new out of this. Now there's many different applications of how you want to be setting up the AI for different bosses in different cases. So yep, I might get to explain that in different videos in the future, but for now, this is pretty much all there is. Now before you go, please go ahead and check out Aptoide if you haven't done so yet. Aptoide is going to be basically allowing you to get massive bonuses when you're spending money in Raid Shadow Legends when you are playing it through Aptoide, right? So you download Raid Shadow Legends through Aptoide, and when you try to buy something in Raid at that point, you're going to be getting bonuses that can go from extra 10% of your money all the way up to extra 35% of any amount of money you are spending, right? So picture that you're buying this pack, you're going to be getting a maximum of 35% of the value of this pack in the form of a bonus. Now what's cool about all this thing is that when you do have enough of the bonus, you're going to be able to go ahead and use that bonus to make the payment instead of actually using your real money. So that way you are getting more value for your money, you're saving up money on future purchases, and you're just basically getting more for the same, right? If you go ahead and use my code, which is going to be in the screen right now as well as down in the description, you're going to be able to earn an extra 5% bonus from the get-go right flat forever, and that's going to be right into your Aptoide wallet. There's going to be a guide down there in the description as well explaining how to set the whole thing up in your PC, like Android emulators like BlueStacks or Nox, or also on your Android devices. Doesn't work on iPhone, unfortunately, but that's going to be pretty much it, guys. If you go ahead and use my code, I would really appreciate it. It also helps me out immensely, and it's going to be helping you out saving up more money when you do this purchase. All in all, that's all for me in this video, guys. Let me know what you think about it. If you liked it, if you didn't, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. See you.